guys, welcome for a somewhat different video again. This one is going to be my top 15 kind of old to me authors from 2020. I know I did a top 15 new to me authors for 2020, and I thought it would be really nice to do an old to me one. And these are basically authors that I read in 2020 that I continued to really love. And they've been just very consistent throughout a number of years, just making books that I really enjoy. Some of them do series, some of them do not. But I thought I'd do that. I thought that would be kind of fun. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. The first one I want to talk about is Nagabe, who does a manga series called The Girl from the Other Side. So let me grab, I actually was able to grab all of these. This year I read both volumes 8 and 9 in that series. So I'll hold those up. And really love them both. This is what a lot of people call a quiet fairy tale type of series, although it has gotten a little bit more action-packed and interesting. It's about a little girl named Shiva who wanders into the other side where these monstrous type of people live. And this monstrousness is a disease that normal people can catch. And she's been exposed to it, so she was kind of left on the other side, but she hasn't turned into a monster yet. And this character is named Teacher. And mostly these monsters are monstrous, but Teacher is not. Teacher has somehow managed to hold on to his humanity and ends up kind of raising and taking care of Shiva. And there's a lot more to the story as it goes on, but it's got a very kind of unique drawing style that I really enjoy. And I really enjoy the characters in the storyline. I think it's just really well done. And as you can see right now, I'm going to try to hold these all up. There's 9 books in the series, and I've really enjoyed them all. So, you know, I just really will continue to read Nagabe. I really like the drawing style and the story, and I'm excited to see what happens next, both in the series and both with this author. All right, and I should mention that these authors aren't in any particular order, but I'll just go ahead and go through them. The next one I wanted to talk about is Annette Marie, and I know if you guys follow my blog at all, you're probably super sick of hearing about her, but she's been a consistently good indie author that I really like, and she publishes most of her books through Amazon, so they're available on the Kindle format, and she does participate in Kindle Unlimited as well. And her first series was the Steel and Stone series, and she also wrote Red Winter and Spellweaver. Steel and Stone was probably my favorite of those older series. I actually got the first book in Steel and Stone to review and fell absolutely in love with it and just devoured the rest of the series as it came out. She tends to release her series very quickly, so she'll do like a book every few months. Most recently, though, this year, I read her Guild Codex series, and there's like 3 sister series right now that kind of interweave with each other, and that's Guild Codex Spellbound, Guild Codex Demonized, and Guild Codex Warped. Each sub-series features different sets of characters, but you'll see those characters in other series. Guild Codex Spellbound and Guild Codex Demonized did wrap up this year, so I was able to read the complete series, which is really nice. Warped is just starting, and then there's going to be another one featuring the Dark Druid that's in the series that will be starting later in 2021. So she has been a very consistent author. She writes very good urban fantasies. They're always fairly lighthearted. Well, they have a dark tone to them, but a lot of times they have a lot of humor in them as well. She's very good at writing excellent action scenes and very engaging characters that you really care about. The plot and magic systems are also always very interesting as well, so she's good at world building. And she's one of those authors that just is very well balanced. I will say I think her strengths are characterization and action, but she does a good job of balancing like world building, magic, intriguing plot. A lot of them are more kind of investigative type of plot. And I just have been really impressed with how quickly she turns out books and how readable they are. I mean, if you want something fast and fun to read, she's a great author to go to. And if you are an urban fantasy fan, definitely a go-to author. So she's my second author on this list. Definitely check her out if you are an urban fantasy fan. All right. Third author on this list is very well known, and that is Maggie Stiefvater. And I always say her last name wrong, and then I look up how to say it, and then I say it wrong again. Anyways, she's been around a long time, very famous. Her earliest series was Gathering a Fairy, followed by The Wolves of Mercy Falls, and then she wrote a standalone, The Scorpio Races, and The Raven Cycle, which was probably one of her most famous. This year, I did read the first book in her Dreamer trilogy, and that is Call Down the Hawk, and this was so good. She's got such a distinctive writing style. It's very, very different from any other young adult author in there. It's a little bit more ambiguous, uses a lot more imagery. Some of the concepts she's dealing with are like dreams and feelings and stuff like that. And so they're all a little bit, it's just very different. And so beautiful. I absolutely love this book. For those of you who have read The Raven Cycle, this features Ronan Lynch and his brother, as well as in here a lot, and it's just so beautifully written. I mean, Ronan deals in dreams, and that's kind of what this whole book is about, is people dreaming and using their dreams to influence things, and also just about Ronan and him trying to find some balance. There's a number of, again, Meg does a great job with characters. She just has a beautiful writing style and very unique, and I am very much in love with her writing. Anytime she comes with a book, I immediately pick it up. All right, the next one we're going to talk about is the husband and wife writing team, Alona Andrews. They are also very, very popular urban fantasy writers. They have written the Kinsman Chronicles, the Edge series, the Innkeeper Chronicles, and they wrote the Kate Daniels series. They are currently in process of writing the Hidden Legacy series and the Kate Daniels World series, so the Aurelia Rider series, which features one of the characters from the Kate Daniels series. This husband and wife writing team, they have gotten world building down like amazing. The worlds that they put these series into are just fantastic. They're creative, they're well thought out, they're very intricate. And in addition to that, they make very good engaging characters. They write very good action scenes. They have very complex plots, so they're very easy to follow. And you're just always rooting for their characters, and it's just so interesting. It's another one of those author teams that is just very well balanced. Like, you're getting an awesome world with a really good complex story, and they do a very good job of having kind of like each book has like a more complete story, but there's an overarching story that goes through all the books. So again, if you are an urban fantasy fan and you haven't checked out Alona Andrews, please check them out. Every time I read a book by them, I just finished Blood Heir, which comes out in January, mid-January. I'm just impressed. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what urban fantasy should be. Like, I just want to reread everything. And unfortunately, I have read everything by them. So there's nothing new for me to read. But I'm really, really excited about that author duo. And they've just consistently written very good stuff for a long, long time. All right, so number 5 on the list is an author named Jana Toboso, and that is the author of the Black Butler series. Manga series. Right now there are 29 volumes in the series, so the 29th one came out this year. This is just another really fun manga series that is beautifully drawn. Let's see if I can find a good example that I just really, really continue to enjoy a lot. It's kind of a paranormal Victorian-esque type of series. Let's see if I can find a picture of, they've been putting different characters on the cover. So the main character is CL, and he, through reasons unknown until later in the series, has summoned a demon that becomes his butler, and he runs a toy making company, but is also one of the queen's enforcers. So again, it's set Victorian times, which if you follow my blog or this channel, you know I love that. Very beautifully drawn, just very interesting characters, very complex plot, and consistently well done. So I didn't grab all the books, but here's, some of them. I think this is, 25 through 29. But I do have all of them. And I will probably reread them at some point because I love them so much. So definitely if you're looking for a manga series, I will say this is one that tends to maybe appeal. It's not super like shonen style, so it's not about like, young men fighting stuff. It's got a lot more intricacy than it to that, and it is rated older teen, so keep that in mind. But I really love that manga series. All right, the sixth author on my list writes under two different names. The first is Shanon Boyd, and she also writes under Mira Grant. Shanon Boyd has become a complete go-to. I read everything by her. Another urban fantasy author. She is writing. Well, so this year I read the 14th October Day book by her, Killing Frost, and I also read the Imaginary Numbers book 9, Imaginary Numbers, which is Encrypted book 9. She also writes the Wayward Children series. These series have been, I would say, like the first couple books of the October Day series were a little bit rough around the edges, but again, she has just, everything she writes is just so amazing. She does a great job with world building, a great job with characters. I will say her urban fantasies are maybe more intrigue, politically motivated. There's a lot of investigative in there, but they are not as action-packed as a lot of them. They're very focused on fairy and fae and mythology, and like the Encrypted series is very focused on cryptozoology, both things I really find intriguing. Very solid writer. Again, she's very prolific. She writes multiple books a year, and she's been doing that for years and years and years, and they've been consistently really, really good. So I would definitely recommend her. All right, the next one's an author I just started reading last year, and that is Jennifer L Armentrout. She has been writing for a long time and is another very prolific writer in the paranormal, young adult, and some like adult, I think, contemporary romance as well. She wrote the Dark Elements series. She is writing the Harbinger series and just started From Blood and Ash. And they've been pretty good. I did read one of her older series, Lux, and I wasn't a big fan of the first book in that series, but it was an earlier book for her. Again, very prolific writer. She has 2 series going on. The Harbinger series is a urban fantasy young adult series. The From Ash and Blood series is a epic fantasy adult, I think. It seems like it's more adult than young adult series. And her books are they're these books that they're huge. They're like, 500, well, not huge, 500 or 600 pages long. You sit down to read it thinking, oh, I'm going to be reading this book all week. And then the next thing you know, you've been sitting there for like 3 hours and you're like getting close to being done with it because you cannot put it down. You cannot stop reading it. She's just one of the most readable writing styles. And her books are always a little bit heavy on the romance, but she also writes very good action. So the story just propels itself forward. She's very good at creating like complex magic systems that are interesting. Her characters always kind of have this love-hate relationship thing going on. If you like that kind of thing, I have found that if I read like a lot of her books at once, it starts to get a little bit repetitive. So I tend to try to sprinkle her books out throughout other books when I read them. So another author, if you like young adult paranormal type of books, or you're interested in starting a new epic fantasy series, definitely check it out. They are somewhat romance-driven plots. If you don't like romance, skip it. But if you do like romance and you like it with a lot of other stuff, like good world building and some action and a pretty good intricate plot, I would definitely recommend her too. She's becoming one of my go-to authors. Again, I didn't start reading her till last year, but yeah, she's been really good. All right, the 8th author on this list is Kevin Hearn. He wrote the Iron Druid Chronicles, which he kind of took a break from. I know he's been doing another series with Delilah Dawson. I have not read that one, but he finally started up a new series this last year called Ink and Sigil, and this book was amazing. I thought it was even much better than all his Iron Druid Chronicles book. Another urban fantasy author who really ties his stories in with different types of mythology. That's kind of the whole premise behind his book. Ink and Sigil is actually about an elderly man, which I wasn't sure if I would relate to that protagonist very well, but I really liked it a lot. It's about an older man who's involved in the whole Iron Druid world as kind of like a guy who draws up contracts for them. And it was really, really well done. it's just really cool. Like he uses all these different inks and botanicals and stuff to make them, and so it was interesting. I got to learn a lot about some of that stuff as well as be back in this really intricate world again. Again, I would say Hearn's strengths are world building and action, which are two things I really like. Not really any romance in these books. They are very urban fantasy in theme, but pretty much action, cool world, lots of interesting mythology. So he's been a very solid writer. I've been reading for a number of years, and I loved Ink and Sigil in 2020 when I read it, and so I would definitely recommend him too. All right. The ninth author on my list here is Marie Brennan. This year she wrote Driftwood, and I'm actually in the middle of reading The Mask of Mirrors. I think that's what the book is called. It comes out in January. It's the beginning of a new series that she's writing under a different pen name. Anyways, this year I read Driftwood by her. I'm reading The Mask of Mirrors, and I read Turning Darkness into Light. Really loved all of them. Again, her previous series, she's been writing for a long time. She wrote the Lady Trent series, which I loved. She also wrote the Onyx Court, I think is what it's called, like a Fae series, which I did not love. So a little bit of mixed stuff in her past, but lately I feel like her writing's been a lot better, and she's really been concentrating on building these super complete worlds. Again, she's a world builder. I would say her books aren't as focused or at all focused on romance. They're more focused on building these super intricate worlds where there's a lot of intrigue and a lot of complexity to it. She does have a more detailed writing style, I would say, so some of her books tend to be longer, like The Mask of Mirrors is almost 700 pages long, I think, and there's a lot of detail in there that really helps you picture and really helps these worlds come alive, but it might be a little slow for some people. However, she's been consistently good, and she's an author. I feel like her writing style has been improving more and more as time goes on, so she's still working on kind of growing and improving, even though she's been writing for so long. So if you're into fantasy and you like these really intricate worlds, I would definitely recommend her. All right. Since we're on the theme of fantasy, my number 10 consistently good author, and again, this is an author I only started reading last year, is Robert Jackson Benet. He is writing the Foundry Side series, and I read Shorefall this year and loved it. Last year he wrote Foundry Side. He's got another series that I have not read, but I plan on picking up. Again, epic fantasy, amazing world building, just really fantastic plots and complexities to his stories. Very unique. His worlds, this last world, the Foundry Side world, has a little bit of like a steampunk feel to it, but it's also epic fantasy, and it follows kind of a group of characters. It's got kind of that Ocean's 11 feel to it, where you have like a group of characters that work together to like con people and do things to take out the upper echelon. So really, really excellent fantasy writer, and I've really been enjoying his stuff. So if you are looking for another epic fantasy writer, maybe check him out. Okay, the 11th author on the list, we're getting through it. I'm going as fast as I can here. Is Frances Hardinge, and she is a young adult fantasy writer, but her books are very different from what you might expect. So this year I read Deep Light, which I loved. Her worlds are so creative. Her writing style is very interesting, and it's out there. She really likes kind of these Lovecraftian type of themes, so there's a lot of madness and human psychology going on underneath her stories. The other story I had read from her previously is A Face Like Glass. Such a fascinating concept. It was like about a society where you only have a couple of facial expressions, and the richer you are, the more facial expressions you can pay to learn. But a girl ends up in a society who is a normal human, who came from the normal human world, who has a ton of facial expressions, and because of that, she like threatens their whole society. So as you can tell, very creative ideas. They're very intricate fantasy worlds, and just absolutely stunning. So I have a whole bunch of more of her books to read this year, but she's been writing for a while, and she is consistently amazing. So if you are interested in like quirky, weird fantasy worlds, I would definitely recommend picking up some of her books. They're just so different and so beautifully written. That's the other thing. Her writing style is just so beautiful. All right, number 12 on my list, Sarah Beth Durst. Durst has written a lot of books. Some of her favorites of mine were The Queens of Rinthia, which is an adult epic fantasy series, The Stone Girl Story, which was a middle grade fantasy series, and Spark, which was kind of young adult, I don't really want to say paranormal, I guess it's a fantasy still. This year she wrote a book called Race the Sands. It was amazing. I really loved it. Again, Sarah Beth Durst is becoming one of those authors that I know when I get a fantasy book from her, it's going to be a really interesting world. The characters are really going to pull me into the story. And it's just going to be easy to read and well written. So she's definitely become a go-to author for me when I want to read a really excellent fantasy book. And she does good world. She's one of those very well-rounded authors. She does really good world building. She has really engaging characters, very good plots. The whole thing is just very well done. So really would recommend her if you are interested in kind of unique worlds and solid fantasy. All right, the 13th author on my list was not super active this year, but I did read one new book by her, and that is Christina Henry. She's going to be one that people are maybe not going to like or will really like. It all depends kind of what you like. She tends to write super dark fantasy bordering on horror. Her first series she wrote was the Madeline Black series, which was more of a traditional like urban fantasy series. But more recently, she's been doing super dark like horror fairy tale retellings. So she wrote the Chronicles of Alice, which I loved. She's also wrote a retelling of like The Little Mermaid, and she did a Peter Pan one. The book she put out this year was the Chronicles of, was called Looking Glass, sorry. And it was a short story compilation of novellas and short stories from the Chronicles of Alice series that hadn't been released anywhere that kind of build on that world. It kind of tells you like where the characters went after and gives you a little bit of pre-story and stuff like that. Really well done. I loved it. I love that Henry has found this niche where she's like doing these like horror fairy tale retellings. She pulls in so many unique aspects of the fairy tales. And I love fairy tale retellings, and I think this is a really interesting spin on it. Now, these are very graphic. They're very gory. If they can be kind of uncomfortable to read because they are very graphic, gory, and explicit. So if you're not into that, don't pick them up. If you are interested in that and like how that wraps into some of these fairy tales, I would definitely recommend picking it up. We all know like the original Grimm's fairy tales were very dark. And so this is, I feel like the theme and tone that she uses stays very true to the original idea behind the fairy tales, but she does it in a very interesting way. A lot of them are paced like more like an urban fantasy, but you know, just very well done. So I really look forward to reading more books from her in the future. All right, number 14 on the list, so we're almost there, is Makoto Yukimura, and he writes the Vinland Saga. So I have Vinland Saga 11 here. I'm really sad 12 got delayed until spring 2021 to release. He also wrote the Planetus Omnibus, volumes 1 and 2. Of course, I got the omnibus, but they were released individually. So those are kind of his two main series that he's written. I think he's got a third out there that I have not read yet. But the drawing and the intricacy to this story is stunning. This is my absolute number one. I mean, you can just see, I don't know if you can see how intricate some of his drawing is here. But yeah, this is just amazing. These are amazing historical fiction manga novels. They are big. Each volume that's released here in the US is about 600 pages long, I think. I don't even know what else to say with these. They're stunning. They feature, well, of course, the drawing is amazing, but it's a historical storyline about Thorfinn. It starts when he's a young boy, goes up to when he's a man. The earlier books are much more just violent and about Thorfinn seeking revenge, but as the story goes on, he grows a lot of a character and starts questioning kind of his lifestyle and what he wants to do. And this all takes place in the era where the Vikings are like invading Europe and all of that. So really well done. In between each chapter, there's always like some historical detail where the author actually shows you what really happened during this time and how all that goes. So if you're interested in history, very well done. If you're interested in fantasy or whatever, lots of action, especially early on. Awesome character development. This is my favorite manga series that I've ever read and that I am reading. So very impressed with that. In addition to this, I did read Planetus Omnibuses 1 and 2 this year, and those were good, but you can tell that they're earlier. So like the earlier part of Planetus Omnibus 1 is a little rough. It's a little hard to follow. The drawing is not quite as polished, but as you go on through Planetus Omnibus 2, you can tell that Yukimura is trying to like finally catching his stride a little bit, and the drawing becomes a lot better and the story becomes a lot more cohesive, but you can tell it's an earlier work that he did. So if you're interested in historical manga at all, or even fantasy manga, definitely pick up Vinland Saga. It is my favorite manga right now. I mean, I'm sorry, Black Butler, I love you too. And I love Witch Hat Alier, but Vinland Saga, oh, it's just the best. And I have all of these, and I reread them occasionally, and they are all like down on a bookshelf over here, but you probably can't see them. All right, one more. The last author I want to talk about is one that is a bit newer and she hasn't written as much, and that is Emily Lloyd Jones. But both of her books have really impressed me just with their creativity and their world building. The first one she wrote was The Hearts We Sold, which was, just kind of more of a paranormal young adult book, but it was a really creative premise. The latest one she wrote was The Bone Houses, and it was fantastic. She's another one that just has really unique ideas and does very good world building, and her writing is so readable and so well done. So, and this is getting long, so that's all I'm going to say about that. If you're interested in kind of unique world building and an easy to read, fast-paced story that has a lot of unique ideas in it, I would definitely check out Emily Lloyd Jones. So those are the 15 authors in no particular order that the 15 old authors that I really enjoyed this year. And again, these are authors that are not like debut authors, or they're not new to me authors, but they're authors that I've been consistently reading every year and I really look forward to. And if I'm looking for something to read, I know that I can depend on them for a great book this year. They're authors, I follow on Goodreads, and I always try to make sure to get notifications when they're releasing new books. So I just thought I would share them with you guys. I am going to be trying to do more consistent videos on my YouTube channel, and they also post on my blog, which is listed below. I plan on posting videos on Wednesday and Saturday this year. The Wednesday video will be something different, like this top 15 old authors to me. The Saturday video will be my more traditional, like stacking the shelves type of video. So anyways, if you're interested in that, please subscribe and click the little notification bell if you want to get notified when a new video posts. And I hope that you enjoyed this. If you'd like to list some authors that you really loved in 2021, please do. I'm always looking for more books to read. And I will talk to you guys on Friday. Bye.